Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name is Cameron, and on today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at what I consider to be a very special limited release bourbon. This is the 12-year-old double barrel expression from Lux Row Distillers. Alright, so let me give just a little bit of background here about this special release from Lux Row. Lux Row Distillers is actually owned by a parent company, Lux Co., which is based out of St. Louis, originally founded in 1958 as the David Sherman Corporation. Now, some of the other expressions that you might know from this company would be the Ezra Brooks line, Old Ezra 7, which I have up here on the drum, the new Davis County line, also here on the drum in the back there, Blood Oath, Rebel Yell, and David Nicholson. So, you know, there are some more common expressions coming out of Lux Row. There are also some harder to find, maybe like the Blood Oath, Old Ezra 7 sometimes is allocated. But by and large, you know, there's a pretty wide portfolio of things that they are producing. Now, they have been known to source all of their bourbon because they are such a young distillery, and it's believed that most of it came from Heaven Hill, although, you know, none of this is officially disclosed, so I'm not exactly sure. And I've heard different rumors in different places about some of these bottlings being sourced from other distilleries as well. This expression, this 12-year-old double barrel expression, was actually bottled to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the distillery opening its doors. Lux Row Distillers opened in April of 2018, so very recently, and the way that they've commemorated that, not only with this special release bottle to mark the anniversary, but they've actually given it a proof that relates to that date of the distillery opening. So it is 118.4 proof, which commemorates 2018, and the 4 being, you know, April, the 4th month of the year. They actually list this as a cask strength expression, but it has been proofed down slightly to meet that 118.4 for that commemorative purpose, and I think we would all agree that that's pretty cool, and that's definitely okay. This is obviously a really pretty bottle. Let me see if I can get a good view here of it. The topper is absolutely beautiful, this nice copper color. Everything feels heavy duty. It feels like a limited release in your hands. I think it just looks so sharp, and right away you get a very good impression from this whiskey. Now, when you pop it open, the cap weighs like a pound. I mean, this is a very heavy cap, again, which just sort of lends itself to being this awesome special release, and I really think it's a special bottle. I'm going to pour it here and continue talking while it opens up just a bit. You know, the other thing to mention about this, gotta love that snap. The other thing that you have to mention about this is sort of the process that they went through to actually bottle these things. It's believed that it was about a 6,000 bottle release, so pretty limited, and I will tell you in just a second how I came into, you know, how I grabbed this bottle. But the double barrel process that they're talking about here doesn't mean that it was double oaked. They didn't take, you know, the whiskey out of one barrel and put it into another new barrel, but actually what they did, instead of making it a single barrel product, is they just chose 2 barrels that complemented each other, and they blended those 2 barrels together in order to create these small double barrel batches. Now that's a pretty labor intensive process. You can only imagine how many barrels you'd have to sift through to really find the right combinations for this limited release. And so when we start talking about price at the end of the video, of course that's going to be a factor, that it is a higher price, but at the same time it is a more labor intensive process. So it's just something to note there. And on the front of the bottle they actually give you the barrel numbers, and they tell you when the whiskey in here was barreled in each of those to begin its aging. You know, I've seen different bottles of this with wildly different barrel numbers, which makes you think like, wow, they might have been over here in the rick house and then over here checking out these different barrels and really trying to figure out what works. But mine has 2 barrels whose numbers are right next to each other. So I feel like maybe at some point they got a little lazy in the process and said, hey, we'll just take these 2 and blend them together. I'm just kidding. I don't actually know if that's how they did it, but I do find it a little bit funny here. So we have a 12-year-old age statement on the bottle. Let me tell you how I snagged this one. I was actually down in Kentucky just doing some bourbon hunting, going around. I met up with a friend, and on my way home to Ohio, I passed just before I passed through Cincinnati, I stopped off at a store which will remain unnamed right across the river in Kentucky, and they had actually just put these bottles out. There were maybe a dozen and a half of these bottles sitting out on a barrel as like a special display, and it was about 8 p.m. The store was about to close, and I walked in and I lucked into this bottle for $150, which is a great price for this, considering, you know, the $250 price tag on the secondary market. So I feel very fortunate to own this. You know, I don't know if I'll ever see another one again out in the wild. We sure don't get these in Ohio, so I was just very excited. Let's go ahead and nose and taste through this thing and see what we get. Oh, wow. It's so delicious. It's such a powerful smell. Yeah. This is like fall in a glass. I mean, it's like it's so warming. It's fall or winter in a glass, I would say. There is a ton of deep, dark fruits, but also a ton of spice going on. You know, the first thing you get is sort of this, you know, awareness of the proof. It's, you know, it's kind of smacking you in the face just a little bit, but you get a ton of baking spice and oak spice right up front. You know, cinnamon as well. But as soon as you get past that, you get these really deep, rich caramels and a ton of these wonderful dark fruits. It's a nose that is very complex, and there are so many different layers here going on. And what's weird is, like, there's almost this light honey note to it as well. Maybe even some apricot, like honey drizzled apricots sort of sitting on the top, with a heavy amount of caramel and baking spices and butterscotch and cinnamon, all being supported by these dark fruits. Yeah, it's just a really great nose. Again, you can tell the proof. It is a little bit of an aggressive, spicy nose, but I think that's okay. It really reminds you of the season, that fall, winter time when it gets chilly outside. This is the kind of thing that you want to be sipping on. Yeah, and the more I nose it, the more caramel is just coming out of the glass. Let's get a taste of this one. Oh my goodness. You're going to see my eyes water a little bit. The spice is so strong, it pops so hard. But man, that is delicious. Right away, it's big and full. Like, obviously the spice takes the lead here and just punches you in the tongue. Wow, and it's still just, I mean, the palate's still going. It's not even into the finish yet. It's still developing here. So spice takes the lead right away, but that transitions immediately into these incredible red fruits and dark fruits, and just a ton of that butterscotch note. You know, that first sip wasn't bright at all. There was none of that honey sort of sitting on top that I talked about on the nose. No, that was all intensity, all spice, and just, you know, red/dark fruits going on there. So, oh my gosh, that is really, really good. And now that your palate acclimates to it, by the second sip here, it's much sweeter. So a little bit of that power fades away. Same thing on the nose. You know, after you nose it a few times, you kind of peel away the layers of the spice and you can really get into the sweetness. That was all rich butterscotches and rich caramels. Now, the one thing that I've noticed on this whiskey, and I've sat with this for a while. As you can see, the bottle is just a little under halfway full. I've sat with this for a while. I've tasted it a few different times and taken notes and everything like that. And I keep coming back to this idea of like a sherried whiskey, but only very slightly. These sort of stewed red fruits and dark plums and figs that I get from this, at some points, it reminds me of like a sherried scotch. Now, it's not like overwhelming. To my knowledge, this is not a sherried whiskey, but sometimes that comes through. And, you know, I like to review these whiskeys before I watch other people's reviews, before I read articles online and stuff like that. But once I had my thoughts pretty narrowed down, I checked out what Breaking Bourbon had to say about this, and they actually mentioned the same thing, which I thought was I mean, it made me feel validated, if I'm being honest, right? But they mentioned this idea of like a sherried profile in there. Like I said, it doesn't taste intentionally sherried or anything like that. It's just this sort of reference to a sherried whiskey in there, and it's delicious. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. The more that you nose this and the more that you taste it, the further away the spice gets, and the more the sweetness comes into focus. On that sip, that was all milk chocolate. It almost reminded me of not a Milky Way, but like, well, heck, maybe it is a Milky Way. Oh, a Carmelo. That's it. That's the one I was thinking of, which is like shamelessly my favorite and probably the worst for you candy bar that you could ever buy, a Carmelo. This reminded me of a Carmelo on that sip. And, now as we get into the finish is really, really oaky, but not in a tannic way. Like, it's a great semi-sweet oak where you have those sweet flavors from the caramel hanging on. You have the baking spices really in the back of the throat, just hanging on. It's a great way to get a long finish with the spice, but also to continue having a mouth-watering finish from all of the sweet flavors and that sort of semi-dry, semi-sweet oak that's going on there. So let me give you my final thoughts on this whiskey, and then we can go ahead and wrap this up. This is one heck of a spicy pour. Like right away, if you haven't had any whiskey at any point during the day, like this is my first drink of the day, it will punch you in the face and make your eyes water. I like that, but just be warned, like this is not even 60% ABV, and this thing is really killer. It's got a great proof to it. It drinks above its proof, but it's all backed up by enough flavor that, you don't mind that at all. I think the value here is good. I don't think it's a great value. I think the MSRP is something like $150, which is what I paid for it. These typically go for around $250 now. At $250, it's a little bit tough. If you want to collect limited release whiskeys, if you want something that's totally different than anything else and really tasty, absolutely buy this bottle. Even at that $250 price point, I could see wanting this bottle. I don't know if you're ever going to see it on shelves because this was such a limited release, but if they ever do this again, be on the lookout for something like this. I really tend to like a lot of what Lux Row is doing. Some of it's very adventurous, like the Blood Oath series. Some of it's more straight ahead. The Davis County stuff was, it was interesting. It was a nice experiment with some of the finishes they did, but they're always pushing the limits and they're trying new things, and I think that's really, really cool. And it's great to support this. Old Ezra 7 is also sort of a staple in the bourbon community. So, if you haven't had anything from Lux Row, get your hands on the Rebel Yell 10-year, the Old Ezra 7, some of the Blood Oath stuff if you can, and just check out what they're doing. All right, so that is all for this video. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to this YouTube channel. Give me a like on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for whiskeys you'd like to see reviewed, just drop me a comment here, or you can find my email address in the description below. And if you disagree with anything, let me know. I would love to hear from all of you on that kind of thing as well. I got a little bit of flack about my Yellowstone 2020 limited edition review. Some people on Facebook were not happy that I gave it such a negative review, but I think that's what the fun of all of this is, Everybody's palate is just a little bit different. We all taste different things. We all appreciate different things in our whiskey. And, as long as it doesn't get too personal, I love a nice little debate about, what it is that we're tasting. But at the end of the day, everybody's different. Everybody enjoys different things. I love this Lux Row 12. If you had a chance to try it, let me know what you thought. Otherwise, I will see you next time on Drums and Drams. Cheers.